Okay, so this is our midterm review. This is only part 1, but this is going to be part of Unit 2, the first half. When I return, we're going to go over some more topics. That will be the second part of your midterm. What I want to stress the most is go back to the directions. Each set has a set of directions for you that will help you go back and look in your reference book and know exactly what you're looking for. In this case, the directions say, calculate the rate of change and unit rate. So we're looking for rate of change and unit rate from a context. And remember, context is the text that we're given. Be sure to label your numerator and denominator first. I'm only going to do number 1, 2, 3, and 4. You should be able to work with your table mates and figure the rest out. In this video, I'm only going to do a couple choice few that I know you're going to struggle with. So Mr. Morris drove from Los Angeles to San Francisco, a distance of 342 miles in 6 hours. He drove the first 110 miles at an average speed of 55 miles per hour. What was Mr. Morris's unit rate of the average speed of miles per hour for the remainder of the trip? So when you hear unit rate of average, you know what's going to be on your denominator because it's going to tell you in the question. So here we're talking about miles and hours. The reason why we know hours is going to be at the bottom is the keyword per. If we're looking for unit rate, eventually we're going to get 1, which will be per an hour. Since we know we're talking about miles and hours, we're going to separate the information given in the text. What is the information we know about miles? And what's the information we know about hours? So if we go back to the text, we know that the total miles is equal to 342. But if we go back to the text, we also know that he already drove a portion. He drove, so this is what we're going to write about. He already drove 110 miles. If we subtract this, we're going to get the remainder miles of the trip that we are looking for. So how much did he do in the remainder of the trip? So if we subtract this, 4 minus 1 is 3, 3 minus 1 is 2. We're going to find out that it's 232 miles in the remainder of the trip. Now we got to figure out how many hours he spent for the remainder of the trip. This is why this problem's complex, because we have to go back to the context and figure it out. We know that it's a total, so we're back on total, of 6 hours. But he already drove 110 miles at 55 miles per hour. To find out the distance or the time that he spent, we're going to go ahead and divide this. We got 110 miles divided by the amount of miles he did per an hour, right here, per an hour. And 55 will go into 110 2 times without a remainder. So if he had 6 hours, we're going to subtract 6 by 2 and find out that it is 4 hours left in the trip. So we're going to put 4 hours here. He has 232 miles to do in 4 hours. So if you guys brought your calculator to class, or if you're doing this at home, you can use the calculator for this. I'm more worried about the concept. Okay? Let's see if the light works. So for here, I'm going to have to divide by my denominator to get unit rate, which is 1. Unit rate is 1. So we have 232 miles, and we're dividing this by 4 because we want to know how many miles per hour. In this case, it's 58. So if we go back here, we have 58 miles for 1 hour. So our sentence of reasoning is Mr. Morris drove 58 miles per an hour for the remainder of the trip. So all we're doing is answering the question in a complete sentence. I want you to go ahead at your table. You're going to work out number 2. It's very similar to Mr. Morris. You're going to go ahead and read about a Christian family road trip and figure out the same thing you did here. For number 3 and 4, you have a similar one. If you go into your reference book for teacher example, you're talking about Bella's Pizza Shop. In this case, it's Pizza Hut. You can use that as a reference. I want you to make sure you go back to that text and look at it. So as a team, go ahead and work about 5 minutes to get as far as you can. If you finish these word problems, go on to the ones that you do know. In the next video, I'll cover a few more from the review.